It's the end of the day with Ray. Hello, my friends. Well, if you look on that Sharp Interactive board, you know we're going to talk about Sharp's numbers. Their third quarter's numbers are in. We got 9 months worth of numbers for their FY ending March of 2023. Ladies and gentlemen, all week I'm going to share my thoughts on the OEM's financials. Tomorrow we'll talk about Ricoh's. Wednesday we'll talk about Epson. Thursday, Kyocera's turn. Friday maybe I'll do some kind of a wrap-up, or maybe some more balloons will fly around the world. I can talk about that. But during this week, there's an overriding theme in all these OEM presentations. And that overriding theme is this. OEMs make stuff. And they need to make sure whatever they invest in, they're investing to make stuff. Either make stuff they already make better or make new stuff. If you're a stakeholder in an OEM, and they're investing in improving how they make stuff, well, I think you could get excited. When you see OEMs investing outside of their core capacity of manufacturing and making stuff, it's a little scary. When you look at some of the OEM financials out there, where the OEMs have steered off course from making stuff to going into the marketplace and selling services on stuff they don't make, it's been a slippery slope at best. And we know the two major players in that space, both Konica and Ricoh, and we've seen their financials over the last 12 years. It hasn't been any big home run, this big transition into turning OEMs into IT services companies. And I'm going to strongly suggest that all the OEMs pay attention to that reality and start really digging deep into the realities of the numbers of those claiming to do it. Because unfortunately, it just doesn't seem like that's a payout for an OEM. OEMs need to invest in things to help them make stuff or make stuff better. Those are good investments. So without any further ado, let's just jump on the Sharp Interactive board. I want to share my thoughts. So Sharp is the conglomerate. Top line revenue for 9 months, $14.4 billion. They had an operating profit of $1.5 million, 0%. You can see some of the letters I put in red because 0% is not exciting to me. I want to see big operating profits. And the reason that the operating profit is at 0% is that Sharp's making some investments. And by the end of today's episode, I think you're going to agree with me that those investments are in the right place. And in the meantime, there's probably going to be some pain over there at Sharp. And that's why you got to have discipline. That's why you always got to be concerned about profit. You always got to be concerned about cost. You got to be paying attention. You got to have accountability so that when you decide to make investments, or you have opportunities to make investments that are good for the company, you're able to pull it off. And even though it might be painful, that pain will hopefully be short-lived. It won't be something you're going to go through pain on for 12 or 15 years. Because you can see that little robot. He's got his hands in his head. He's saying, what happened? He wants some answers. So let's give that robot some answers. Ladies and gentlemen, the first thing I want to do is I want to talk about the segments of Sharp. So we know that Sharp's broken up into business segments. We have the smart life, the refrigerators, the ovens, all that kind of stuff for your houses. Okay, we get it. 8K ecosystems. That's where all my friends live, okay? Those are the folks that sell supply and service print equipment. We got the MFPs in there, the collaboration displays, that Synapse software applications, and the display projectors. And that application, that software application, is to do what? It's to work with all the stuff they make, they manufacture. This is a great segment for Sharp, and I'll share some thoughts on that in a second. We also have the ICT segment, and that's where the Dynabook lives. The laptop used to be Toshiba, right? They took that out. It's now called Dynabook. It's owned by Sharp. Sharp, I got a big suggestion for you. Now, I know some of y'all watch The End of the Day with Ray, so here's the suggestion. We need to take that Dynabook out of the ICT segment and move it up into the 8K ecosystems. Just get some accountants, do some paperwork, do a transfer, get the Dynabook into the 8K ecosystems so that it's all together in the same place, under the same roof, and I'm going to share thoughts on that at the end of today's episode, so keep that in mind. Display device. The display device segment. Remember this segment. It's important in today's episode. That's where they do the display modules and vehicles, cameras, etc. Do you know Sharp was the ones that invented the LCD panel that we saw on copy machines way back in the early 90s? That was Sharp technology. Sharp's always been good with this liquid crystal technology. and they're doing some amazing things in this category, and they just made some pretty big investments in this category. And those investments are what we need to pay attention to. And then we have the electronic device, which is camera modules, sensor modules, proximity sensors, dust sensors. Who cares? It's too complicated for me to even understand. So ladies and gentlemen, let's jump into some of these revenues. And I want to show you where they had the hiccups, and we'll talk through that a little bit. So if you look at the Smart Life, for 9 months in, they had $2.7 billion in top-line revenue. Their operating profit was $172 million. Congratulations, Smart Life Group. 8K Ecosystems, that's where we're all at. We're excited, right? 3.4 top-line revenue, and they had $83.7 million operating profit. 2.5%. So, it's not 5 or 6, but it's 2.5. It's above the line. They had a strong revenue number of $3.4 billion for the 9 months in, $83.7 million operating profit. ICT, folks, notebooks, laptops, compute products, it's taking a beating, okay? It had a $1.8 billion revenue, and by the way, that was the only business group in that category that had a decline in revenue of 2.4%. Everybody else was up. 8K Ecosystems was up 5.7%, and Smart Life was up 8.7%. But this ICT, this notebook, this computer land, if you will, well, they had an operating profit of minus $87.5 million. They had an $87.5 million loss in that group. And we know the pressures in compute right now. They're big pressures. HP is going to share their numbers. I think February 28th, we're not going to see any home runs in their notebook division. And we're not going to see any home runs in their ink supply division either. That's another episode. But folks, the compute products are definitely having some pressures put on them. Let's look at the display device, and this is important. The display device segment for Sharp is their largest revenue producer, $4.7 billion, and it had a decline of 5.2%. Okay? It's their largest division at $4.7 billion, had a 5.2% decline. There's a lot of things going on in that space. A lot of things, and Sharp is in the middle of a major reorganization in that space. I'll share more thoughts in a second. But let's look at the electronic device, $2.7 billion in revenue. They had a 13.8% increase. But when we look at this display device, $4.7 billion top line number, and their operating profit minus $186.4 million. So they had operating loss of $186.4 million. You could tell that's obviously dragging down this company. They're like, oh my God, that's why the robot had his head in the hands. What's going on? I'm going to share what's going on in a minute. But before I do that, I want to look at this 8K Ecosystems, and I want to compare this to Konicka's digital workplace. And I'm doing this for a reason. We've noticed that Konica ran around for a long time and bought up a lot of assets. I talked about that last week when I went through their financials around the services space. They bought up a lot of companies, a lot of assets around the services space, not stuff they make, just assets around services. And that digital workplace unit where all those services live has struggled to make any operating profit for a long, long time. It really has struggled, and you've seen the numbers. You don't have to, you go in their financials on their website and look. It's been struggling. And when you compare the 9 months in for Konica in the digital workplace to the 9 months into the 8K Ecosystems, there's some interesting things going on there. The revenue's about the same. 8K Ecosystems, $3.4 billion in revenue for 9 months. Konica Minolta's digital workplace, $3.3 billion for the 9 months. The operating profit for Konica was $11.4 million for the 9 months. The operating profit for the 8K Ecosystems was $83.7 million for the 9 months. So you can see it completely crushes the operating profit in the Konica digital workplace. And why is that? I strongly believe, and I've been saying it for a long time, that OEMs investing in things they don't make is a huge investment, extremely costly, and there doesn't seem to be a road to getting the profit out of it. And when you look at Konica, when you look at Ricoh, that's been one of the issues, I think, over the last 12 years. Let's go ahead to the next slide. So this is where I want to talk. This is interesting to me because Sharp took this huge hit in the device group, and they also took control of SDP and Saki Display Products. And they took control of that for about $300 million. This article was published back in June of 2022. And they're reorganizing and restructuring this factory, if you will. But I want you to think about this. This is a huge investment in what? In making stuff and making stuff better. In making stuff and making stuff better, I believe this investment position, it's a position play because a couple of interesting things happen. First of all, they can balance a little bit of issues we all might see with geopolitics by having a factory in their homeland, right? I mean, factories in Japan are going to be important, probably in the very near future. But they also, through this acquisition, through taking ownership of this thing, they diluted Foxconn or Han Precision to 49.5% ownership in Sharp as a conglomerate. So Han only has 49.5% ownership now, and folks, that gives, it went from 52.6. So this is the first time that Foxconn or Han Precision is their real name, but has not had the controlling interest in Sharp. So it'll be interesting to see how we progress now. You know, Sharp's got control. Sharp also just appointed a new president, so we'll see how the new CEO does as well. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm just thinking that it's a position play. It strengthens the display deliverable. And the display deliverable, that division, is their largest revenue producing division. And so let's make some investments. Let's restructure some things. It says right here in this press release, at the management briefing after shareholders meeting in June, Sharp's chief executive officer, Wu, said on the role of playing SDP, part of which will be shifted to automotive and computer-oriented products to gain new areas and customers, thus stabilizing performance. So how can we get new customers and new products from this investment? Investments have to pan out. And as I said at the beginning of this episode, when you're watching an OEM make investments, what do you really want them to invest in? How to make stuff better? Or how to attempt to do things that's completely, really far away from their core? I think it's something we all need to think about as an industry. So their forecasting for the year is not pretty. Their year will end in March of 2023, and they're going to show a $152.1 million operating loss is what they're telling the world right now as they restructure and reformat this company. And we'll see how that goes. But I hope they just, get it all out get it all out this year. If you're going to have the loss, get it all out this year. And let's move into 2023 with a clean slate. But I got to tell you something, folks. When you see the world we live in today, and we've had some issues over these last couple of weeks with the balloon stuff, and some of that people can make fun of it, call it silly, whatever it is, but spy and geopolitics, this is all a big thing. The economic turbulence that we have, the war turbulence that we have, some of the environmental things that we see going on around the world. The world is in a place where we need to have what? We need to have discipline. We need to have accountability. We need to have leadership that can navigate through turmoil. We don't need leadership trying to accomplish things so far outside their core that it's almost impossible in good times, let alone in the turbulent times that we're in. And this is to all my OEM friends out there. So ladies and gentlemen, the 8K ecosystems, they're doing well. They picked up a lot of accounts during COVID. Sharp and their MFP business, it performed above expectations. And I know Mike's been going around talking about that here in the U.S. And hopefully the relationships they picked up from some of these other OEMs will stick. And hopefully some of the dealers that are using Sharp products start selling more of their products. And I'll share more thoughts on that as we get to the end of today's episode. But folks, the ICT business, that PC business is always going to be sluggish at best. And I think that, we need to take the delivered product of the Dynabook notebook and move that into 8K ecosystem. Just saying, folks. So here's what I think. I came up with a slogan for my friends over at Sharp, and it says Sharp, best in glass technology. So we've all heard best in class, right? We go to the meetings, best in class. We're learning about best in class. I think we need to start thinking about Sharp as best in glass technology. Best in glass technology, all the glass technology that Sharp has been making over the years. And we need to figure out how to take all this technology that Sharp's been so great at making, get it all together so that those dealer friends of mine have a platform that's a lot easier to navigate. And so they could go into the marketplace and they could sell the printers and the copiers and the collaboration displays and the Synapse and the Dynabooks and the display projectors and all the NEC stuff. And when they order from Sharp, it's the same kind of process. And when they get their rebates, they're all tied together. It's one big family of products. Sharp, make this happen. Because if you make this happen, you can get your world full of dealers to go out there and get excited about Sharp, best in glass. Because the future for you, Sharp, and the future for everybody else is to do what? To deliver products into the marketplace. Those products, some of them will be supplied, some of them will be supplied and serviced. But it's all about the products when you're an OEM. From a dealer, it's all about what can you take to the market to change the lives of the companies you're selling to for the better. What benefits can you bring to the marketplace? Here's some sincere advice. And this slide is for every OEM in the market. Please evaluate all IT service aspirations, and Sharp, if you're doing any of this stuff, shut it down. Get out of it. That's my advice. Learn from Connick and Rico 15 years. Neither of them have become a defined IT services company. If you can define the IT services component that you're going to go into the marketplace and deliverable, and every one of your executives can define it, every one of your sales reps can define it, they understand what it costs, they understand how to deliver it, that's different. But collecting a bunch of IT services and running out there and trying to do IT services, don't do it, because you're the best in glass. Go sell all this glass. Go sell all these conference rooms, new equipment. Sell school districts Dynabooks. There's so many things you could be selling into the marketplace without bogging yourself down with IT services. So please think really hard about this. Don't follow the folks that have been doing it and not doing it very well when you look at the numbers. They might convince you all they're doing it really well, but when you look at the numbers, that's a different story. And Sharp, remember this, Sharp is a great OEM. Your products will change. However, being a great OEM should be your constant. Being a great OEM should be your constant. I got one more slide to share. I saw this online. This is a picture of Terry Go with, and you know Terry Go, right? I mean, he's been kind of missing on the scenes for a while, but he shows up here, and I don't know where this picture was taken, but there's a whole bunch of Sharp executives. You can see Mike sitting right there. And folks, I kind of put this on the floor where they're standing, and you can see that it's a factory. And I imagine that they're all standing around there and looking at this massive factory that maybe Foxconn's going to build here in North America. And, you know, maybe they're going to make some inkjet MFPs. Maybe they're going to make some products because they are an OEM. Maybe they're going to make some products, come into the marketplace and change people's lives for the good. Because isn't that what we're all trying to do? And everybody watching me knows this. Status quo is the killer of all that'll be invented. Don't get stuck in status quo, and I'll see you all tomorrow.